Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today I'm proud to bring you Herculean Physique with Ryan Foley. Greetings and welcome, Ryan. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. I hope everything's going good for you.
Everything's going very interesting. As you know, as I shared before, I have Parkinson's. So that makes exercising a bit more challenging, not so much because of the shaking, but because of the balance issues. And so I've had to work on my workouts where the weights I'm using are a little bit less than even I was using until recently. And it's slower movements and higher reps that I'm using to get the burn and to get a really good workout.
Are there any exercises that you've had to completely forego? And if so, or have you replaced them with different exercises?
Well, what I've been doing is to make it interesting for myself is I've been using the fact that Derby has countless exercises that are themed. I've always done the Hercules exercises, and they added an Invictus series of exercises. So I combined the
Oh,
Hercules
nice.
Invictus exercise, so I have like a personal workout there, and it had a lot less arm work than I like. So I incorporated the ox workout, the bovine ox, strong as ox, strong like bull, to the workout for the arms. And then I've been basically modifying these. So most of the exercises I can do, some of them I can't. So what I've had to do is modify them so that I can target the muscles the best way I can and as close to the exercises given as possible. And then I do the exercises daily and I rotate them around. And I started one of their adventures called Olympian. So you go through a series of exercises over 28 days, and this gives you the status of Olympian. So I'm using the myth of the quest for the golden apples of the Hesperides to frame everything and add an element of storytelling and adventure to it. And I've been posting it since the beginning of the month. So I'm up to day 19, I believe, or 18, and it's out of 28 days. So then I'll have to pick another myth and another series of workouts. But that's what I've been doing. So I'm having fun.
And do you find that that keeps you motivated, gives you, a little something to look forward to? And then also, do you find that it's easier to achieve when you know that you have a dedicated end date for this particular rotation?
Well, the ending varies by adventure to adventure. They have one called the Journey that goes for 30 days. They have other exercise adventures that are like 7 days or 2 weeks. So I just happened to pick that one because I like the concept. The exercises are very similar. They're just different exercises in different thematic categories. And you can create your own thematic categories too. In fact, I'm playing with an even more complicated version of this, but I'm not ready to play with it yet. So after I finish this round at the end of January, I'll probably make a more complicated version and live out another myth.
And do you see yourself after you figure out what these workouts are going to be? You put it out there into the onto the internet or make it publishable so that way people can follow along if they want to.
Yes, I did it last year with the girdle of Hippolyta, or the girdle of Ares, or the girdle of the Amazons, sometimes called, and that was the adventure then. And I published it in one of the Facebook groups and left it there for a number of months, and then I took it down. So right now I'm doing that in one of the exercise groups that I have on Facebook. And so people can follow it there if they like. And occasionally I'll post the progress on my regular page, just let people know it's there. And I've had the person who was one of the geniuses behind Derby on the show a number of times. So People can find out more about the system. It's a free system. They ask you if you want to volunteer to pay a few dollars if you can, but if you can't, it doesn't matter. All the material and the information is free, and there's more exercises you could possibly complete in a lifetime. And they're categorized in different ways, including bodybuilding ways.
Well, so you're bringing up an interesting point that that I encountered earlier this month, and so we're kind of butting up against it. So just to bring this into focus, so I want to mention the word proselytizing, and
Hmm.
I know a lot of times that proselytizing tends to get lumped in with religion, and it is to a certain extent, but really proselytizing can be about anything. Yeah, it can be. It's just you're trying to convince someone to come over to your belief structure, and a belief is sometimes very difficult for people to change. Ideas, I think, are probably better to have because ideas tend to be a little bit more fluid, whereas a belief structure is pretty difficult to get someone to change. But and I think proselytizing sometimes has a bit of a negative effect to it because especially in the form of religion, it's saying, "Hey, I'm right, you're wrong, and you need to come over to my way of thinking." And I feel like that when we come on here and we have these conversations, my goal has always been the same, and it's to go through and to fill people with the same level of excitement and accomplishment and pride that I have felt by going through and shaping my body through bodybuilding since 2014. It's not so much about obviously there's the physical side of it, but it's the emotional side, and it's I find that by doing this I've become a more compassionate person, but then also it's improved so many different aspects of my life where if I go through and I mean, and granted, we have chosen a extremely difficult path that we're on because in a recent interview, John Cena said, we measure our success by, half a kilogram at a time. We've chosen to take up something that is impossible for us to master. You can bench press 1,000 times, 10,000 times, and it's so difficult to master. And if you think that it is, take a month off from lifting and then come back to it and see how quickly your skills have deteriorated. So we're chasing this thing that we can never perfect. And to me, it's kind of like swinging a golf club. Everything has to be all in the proper rhythm in order for you to do everything properly. And then there's so many different factors involved. But for the most part, I want people to experience that sense of accomplishment that you get from setting a goal and then defeating it and moving past it. And with bodybuilding and with weightlifting in general, it's very easy to do that because you can see your progress. If you're doing a progressive overload, I was only able to lift this much. I got to this point where now I was able to do 12 reps. So now I'm going to increase the weight. And now I can only do 8 reps, but I'm going to work my way up to get up to 12 reps. So you can literally chart your progress. And there is an emotional component that comes with that where you do feel more confident. So
Right.
it's never been about you and I coming on here and hey, fatty, I think you need to lose some weight. That's never been the goal. It's to go through and instill this sense of wellness in people. But how do we do that without proselytizing? How do we do that without clubbing people over the head and dragging them into the gym? For me, it's always been about, hey, I'm just going to show you the door. You're the one that has to walk through it. So how do we reconcile that? The fact that we want people to have this sense of improvement without, again, to use the word, without proselytizing towards them. How do we do that?
I think we've been doing that since the beginning. We haven't been trying to sell people on a particular system or a particular philosophy or even a particular approach to weightlifting. And even though we've been fairly consistent in the things that interest us and the things that we do, we haven't tried to restrict each other to a slightly different view of doing the exercises or dieting or so forth. It's always been, this is what I'm doing at this particular point in time, and this is the effect that it's having on me. And the understanding and recognition of the fact that just because something works for me now, number one, it might not work for you ever. And number two, it might work for you for a little while, or it might work for me for a little while, because that's happened so many times. We'll find a tool or a particular way of doing the exercises, and it'll be fantastic for a while. And then all of a sudden, just like with my dieting, uh, I have type 2 diabetes. So that's like the Hydra in Greek mythology. You know, you chop off one head, even effectively, and two more will grow in its place. And even though there are a lot of reasons for it, they don't have that immortal head identified. That if you take care of this, it'll make everything go away. There are many things claiming to be the immortal head, but they turn out not to be. So I could be eating perfectly now and keeping my blood sugar low through diet, and then something that's been working every day all of a sudden not only no longer works, but it shoots up my blood sugar every time I do it. Like for a long time, I was eating nut butters, like peanut butter, natural, and I could eat as much as I want, and it was keeping my blood low until the day that it didn't. And now, through constant testing, retesting, I find that once a month I could have maybe 2 tablespoons of nut butter, and it not damage my blood level, my blood sugar level. So again, things change also. And everyone knows that we're not doctors, we're not pretending to be, we're not pretending to be health professionals. We're people who are interested in health and immersed in health. We're like gym buddies. We're both on the same general path, and we respect each other, and we trust each other's integrity. Like, you know, I know you're not going to give me harmful information. You know, you're going to give me the best information you have, and we learn from each other. I've tried so many of the things you recommended, and they've been a benefit to me for the while that I did them. Some of them I had to take a break from, and I'll go back to again to see if it works just as well. But that's, I believe, not the proselytizing. It's just we're sharing our journey, and not only its successes, but its failures. In your description for today's show, you identified that as something you wanted to talk about as well. And it's very important to know that. My Parkinson's, for instance, and my spinal arthritis and my type 2 diabetes, all for different reasons that are interrelated, uh, make it phenomenally difficult, if not quite feasible, for me to go back to lifting really heavy weights and so on and so forth. I don't have the balance for it, even if I had the strength that I had before. But still, I didn't give up on weightlifting. I'm still weightlifting almost every day. I aim for every day, and I aim for more than once a day because I can do shorter periods. So I do maybe 3 to 5 sessions of exercise per day. They're like 20 minutes each, but that's what I can do right now. So, gosh darn it, that's what I'm going to do. So I don't think we're converting anybody. And you've produced several systems that you've written about that are still available, I believe. And every now and then I'll look them up, make sure the link's still working. I'll direct people to them. And there too, you were very generous in what you were sharing, and explain why you were doing it this particular way and what the results were, and so forth. So I believe by sharing our motives and our movements and our results and our ideas, we're enriching people. And as you continuously do, you let people know that they should be encouraged and they shouldn't give up. So you're encouraging people rather than telling them, if you're not showing progress, you're doing it wrong, which is what a lot of people who are just there to sell them something do. You know, if you're not getting results, it's not our fault, it's yours.
Right. Well, good. I feel better. So when I come across a situation like that, I tend to incorporate it into my life, and so that was just, it was a fear. It's kind of like one of those things where if you can fake an illness, it means you don't have it because you can go
Right.
through and you can fake it. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands that where we're coming from, and me being who I am a storyteller, and if I was going to go through and explain There's two different books, one of which, and they're kind of at different ends of the spectrum. So one of them is the 48 Laws of Power, that was written by Robert Greene. And so if you want a Deglo monopoly to take over the world, you need two copies of this book, and you keep one by your bed and you keep one in the bathroom, and you read from. Does is he goes through and he lays out the 48 laws of power, and he gives examples of people who followed the laws and the people who went against the laws and what happened to them. And because of those stories, you remember the laws so much better, as opposed to me just coming along and wagging a finger and going, bench press this weight. If I can tell you a story about it, you'll understand it better and hopefully relate to it better. The other book that I would equate this to is The Legends of the Ferengi, which, if you're a Star Trek fan, it is a must read. The Legends of the Ferengi, it's based around the rules of acquisition that the Ferengi use. And so the author of the book, Quark, from the character from Deep Space Nine, told these stories to the authors, and then they just transcribed them. And so as a result, because I may not remember like the actual number of the rules, but because I have that story, I can remember it so much better. So if you will indulge me, I think one of the biggest things that we have is
I've read both books, and we never talked about this before. So independently, I too found those.
Oh,
books,
good.
and I too spent a lot of times reading them. And right now, I'm looking for all my old books, trying to whittle down my collection. And because again, I'm in my late 60s, so I'm not gonna have time to reread all the books that I have. So I'm trying to find homes for them. So I'll probably come across both of those books. But I too think highly of those books, and I too value the lessons that they shared in them.
And so with that in mind, that's fantastic that you've read both those books. That's really cool. I want to, so if you'll allow me to tell a story. So I was at the gym here, it was earlier this month, and because I like to use what I call antagonistic sets. So I tend to do supersets where if I do one push, then I'm going to come along and I'm going to counter that with a pull. And so the idea is like if we're doing chest and back, the idea is to let my chest rest while I'm working my back. And so, but I'm keeping my heart rate high the whole time. Now, the problem with this is that I kind of have to monopolize a couple of machines. And if you're in a little bit of a crowded gym, that's where the social element comes in, and you have to be aware of the people that are around you, and because you don't want to monopolize the thing. And now, except in the post-COVID world, the hygiene, I suppose, is a little bit of an issue. But then it's just let people work in. If I know I'm going to be doing this bench press for a little bit and I'm not using this, this rowing exercise, then yes, by all means, jump in, get your set in, and then I'll swap out with you. So I tend to be very open with people. So I was doing my thing, and a guy came along, and I was doing lat pull downs. And he asked me, and he motioned towards the machine. We have like an unspoken gym code where you can make certain gestures and people know what you're talking about. But so he asked me, and I was like, oh yeah, jump in, work in with me. It's fine. I don't mind. But then he asked me how many sets did I have left, right? Because he wanted to swap out for the grip or, whatever. And never once did I begrudge that guy. And I said, if anything, I told him, I said, hey, by you coming over and taking over this machine, I now have to adapt and I have to go do something different that I probably wouldn't have done if I stayed in my comfort zone. So now here I'm going to go and I'm going to do a different exercise, or I'm going to do the same exercise, but with a different, piece of equipment, which is going to challenge me in a different way. So I did not feel bad about that in the least bit. And in fact, even later, I came up and just had a quick conversation with the guy, and I was like, hey, I'll show you here. Triangles of negative space are attractive. So if you go through and you make a certain pose this way, you're going to look a lot better. And then when you take that selfie, you're going to send it to her. You need to get over here now. And he laughed. And so there's no ill will between us in the least bit. And he helped me out by pushing me out of my comfort zone. Literally the next day, I came along. I wasn't paying attention. I probably should have been, and I took over. I was going to do cable crossovers, and I didn't realize that someone who, again, was kind of utilizing the same system that I was doing, I didn't realize he was using the cable crossovers. He had these metal handles on, which I wasn't a big fan of. So I'm swapping out the handles. And then I realized he took one of the handles and moved over to a singular station. So we have three, we have one station where you can do both arms at the same time, but then there's another station over where you can do it one side at a time. And only once he started in working that one pec muscle did I realize what I had done. And it wasn't malicious. It was an accident. I didn't mean to take over this guy's station. And as soon as I did, I ran over to him and I was like, I'm so sorry, man. I didn't see you there. Yeah. And he was like, no, it's no big deal. He told me the exact same thing that I told the guy from yesterday. And yet for days, I was beating myself up going, you freaking jerk. I can't believe you took over that guy's station, when he probably has forgotten about that because it's been a couple weeks. So he's probably hasn't even given it a second thought. And yet here I am still going, you really need to pay attention. And so like I was at the gym today and there was weight on a machine, but there was no one around it. And so I was looking around. I wanted to make sure I'm not taking over this machine, but it just turns out someone forgot to unload the weight. So now I'm like more cognizant of that, and I probably will be for a little while until I can get this negativity driven out of my brain. So I say all of this to tell the story for you to understand that, I'm sorry, not you, because the audience, for people to understand, we hold ourselves to so much of a higher standard that most people probably don't even remotely consider. All of these flaws, these self-perceived flaws that we have. I'm not saying you should go in with blinders on. There are times where you do need honest criticism, and when you need to, be honest with yourself, is like, hey, I'm doing things and things aren't working. What do I need to change? And so there are times where it's perfectly fine to go through and tear down a program and start back over from new. But as long as you're going through and you're continuing to go in and put in the work, I guarantee you all of these flaws, again, these self-perceived flaws that we magnify in our own mind, is something that most people probably don't even give a second thought about. Much the same way with that one guy who probably didn't give me a second thought, and yet I beat myself up for days. So if you're experiencing this, it's completely normal. I don't know how you defeat it. I'm still struggling with that myself, but I guarantee you all of these supposed flaws that we all think we have, they're magnified in our own mind. And so that's where all you have to do is just continue to put your head down and keep putting in that good work. And if you continue to do that, I promise you, you're going to succeed. And so hopefully, I don't know, Hercules, if you've ever experienced something like this, and if you have, how did you overcome it?
Well, the realization that people try to do the best they can given who they are and what they know at any given point in time. So I look at the things that I regret doing the way I did them, and in truth, almost all the time, I didn't know any better. And that's the reason, there wasn't any particular malice or seeking to gain advantage or gain of any other sort. It's just that based on who I was and how I perceived things at that point in time, I made the best decision I could. And I started looking back on people that I was still carrying grudges for, like throughout my life, and looked at the memories that I had through the eyes of an adult rather than whatever childhood age I had when a lot of these things happened, or young adult age. I looked at my own life on things that I was doing as best I could, and I wasn't doing as well as these people did, who I was holding grudges against in a lot of different ways. So I was able to let go of a lot of that. So now I just cut myself slack as well as cutting other people slack. But like you, I started cutting other people slack first for a long time, and I was very hard on myself. But
Right.
uh, but now again, it's kind of like, yeah, everyone does their best. So just cut them slack, and you do your best, and you know that. So you just cut yourself some slack, and now you're very aware of that. So you're not likely to thoughtlessly do it. And it wasn't that great a crime to begin with. It was a matter of a consideration and gym etiquette. So it raised your awareness and put you at a greater level of awareness, and you're not likely to repeat it. And it sounds like by speaking the gym lingo with the signs and things like that, eventually that will become tradition in your gym rather than just unspoken language between certain individuals. And then there'll be a set of unwritten rules. And if people won't follow them, then there'll be a list on the wall, as we often see in gyms, of things to do or not do with equipment and other fitness
Right.
enthusiasts. But I
Well,
understand.
so
I can identify with it.
with that in mind, as we continue down the road of failure, it's for lack of a better term, but it's we're learning, and so
Right.
and I think a lot of times we tend to go through and we learn more from our failures than we do from our successes. I can tell you right now, as a very very amateur poker player, I can tell you that I can't remember how I built my bankroll, but I sure can tell you how I lost it. We always tend to remember those bad beats as opposed to the great victories. So with that in mind, since it is, I know it's the 19th, we're a little late, but yes, absolutely happy New Year. And so with that New Year is going to come the dreaded New Year's resolution, depending upon how you want to look at it. But so I found out, I learned today that January 9th, it's the second, let me make sure. So the second Friday in January is considered Quitter's Day. And this year that happened to fall on the 9th. And so typically that's the day where most people go through and give up on their New Year's resolutions. Um, New Year's resolutions, I mean, I do think that they are something that people should attempt to do. I attempted to do a New Year's resolution this year where I said I was going to go through and I was really going to hone in. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go through and I'm going to do a breakdown of all my different workouts. And so I want to make sure that I'm in a proper rotation. I actually thought about you because I was like, man, okay, so if I'm going to be hitting these 4 different muscle groups, okay, so there's 4 days. I need one day that's just straight for cardio, which is typically my Tuesdays. Okay, so there's 5 days. So I've got, and then if I'm going to hit a muscle group for a second time, okay, so there's 6. So what am I going to do for the 7th day? And I was really thinking, well, so what I need to do is I need to incorporate stretching, where to just come in and do a whole exercise session where I'm dedicated to stretching. So maybe I'm not burning as many calories, but still it's to go through and help with my recovery. And unfortunately, New Year's crept up on me faster than I expected. I had too much stuff going on, and all that just kind of imploded in on itself. But doesn't mean that I'm not working out. I'm just trying to go through and figure out what that structure is. And sometimes that to go through and make that plan takes longer than you anticipate. So I know we all want to jump in here on January 1st and say, oh, this is going to be the year that I'm going to get in shape or I'm going to, join the gym. But yet, when I went to the gym on the 1st and the 2nd and the 3rd and the 4th and on and on and on, I looked around and I even yelled to all the people that were there at the gym that day. I was like, it's all the same people. I kept hoping, there'd be this crushing wave of new people that would all come in. No, it's all just the same people over and over again because we're all in that same rhythm. But so if you are beating yourself up against because you've already failed with your New Year's resolution, this is where I'll rewind it back and go, hey, cut yourself a little bit of slack, go through, and just because New Year's resolutions, I mean, yeah, they're fine. You can start it on January 1st if you absolutely want to, but there's nothing saying that you can't do it on February 1st and just go through to commit, because once you go through and you start a routine, that routine is going to be all the motivation that you need. Because once you go through, and I think a lot of people quit their New Year's resolution before they're able to develop that habit, before they're able to develop that routine. And once you have that routine in place, once you start breaking from that routine, that's when you feel weird. And as I feel worse on days where I don't go to the gym, so I just go to the gym every day.
Yeah, I don't go to the gym anymore, but I feel bad on days when I don't exercise, so I'll do something, even if it's stretching. I started stretching more too recently, and I don't remember every day yet either. It's not a habit because I'm not someone who devotes a lot of time to stretching, but now I need it. So I do it mostly every day, and eventually I know if I don't do it, I'll feel really bad. But I too found, like you and that you shared many times, just forcing yourself to do something before you know it, you have that energy and you get really good workouts out of that sometimes. For New Year's resolution, I try to make
Absolutely.
two. And one of our hosts, she no longer hosts the show, but she hosted for a number of years. She's Dr. Kak Young. She wrote this book, and it was a book on using astrology to set goals, especially for like New Year's resolutions. And she picked the 12 days of Christmas. That's between December 26th and January 6th, I believe. And every day belonged to a different zodiac sign. So she had you set these goals, and then you uh, start them on when the zodiac sign started. And I played with that for a couple of years, and although it was really good, it was way too many things to keep track of for me. So I decided to go with the labors of Hercules, which I've memorized. And so each one stands for a variety of different things. And sometimes I'll do a labor for each of the categories. So like for fitness, I've each of the labors planned out, and I'm not doing them in order. I'm doing them whenever I feel like doing them. But I started with the golden apples or the Hesperides. So that's the first month how I'll be doing these exercises. So far, I'll be keeping to it. Next month will be a different labor, a different story to keep it interesting, to keep it fresh. And I'll still know which muscle groups I want to target and why and so forth. But I'll be telling a totally different story. And I know from experience that it's going to take me a while to master the new sequence of exercises or the new exercise. So I'm going to screw up for quite a while. But usually by the end of the month, I'll have it. And then it'll be time to change the whole thing again into something else.
Well, so when we're going through and so one, let me just say, man, the anecdotal story, so that way people can decide. I've always tried to treat fitness a little bit like a Chinese buffet, in that you can go through, you can take what you like, take what works for you, and leave what doesn't work for you. But so at the same time, what I kind of want to go through is explain something that I've been doing, which is still really in its infancy stages, but it's kind of gone through and changed my idea of how I'm going to go through and do just this one aspect of my training. So I'm a big believer in volume training. I go through, and again, I'm trying to work out every single day. And so the idea is, if you are working out and it is so intense that you can't come back and work the next day, I feel like you've actually pushed yourself too hard, because you've compromised your exercise for the next day. And this is never more prevalent than when we're training legs. And so I went through and did a week ago and did a pretty massive leg day. And as a result, I felt it, for a really long time afterwards. So it's DOMS, which is called delayed onset muscle soreness. It is a very real thing. Anyone who's ever done a serious leg day, they know the kind of soreness that you're going to experience sometimes 3 or 4 days after that workout. So so I went through and found this article, and I was like, okay, well, this is actually pretty interesting. Now, I haven't been able to test it fully 100%, but so the science behind it in the article, it feels accurate. I mean, I'm not enough of a scientist to be able to go through and say why it works or why it doesn't work. But so the basic idea is that whenever we go through and we do something like a barbell squat, so once we go through and we do a vertical load where we're putting that weight on our shoulders, our body goes into a hyper defense mode. So first of all, so whenever you go through and you're doing a deep squat, so your blood vessels are going to contract, and so as a result, you're not able to get as much blood flowing as you need to. And so a lot of times, if you come off of a really heavy squat, what you'll find is that you may feel a little bit lightheaded, and that's because your brain is not getting enough blood. And so you're going through and you're damaging these muscles. Is that whenever you go through and you do an exercise where both legs are involved, the weight tends to get distributed in such a way that you're not maximizing the amount of force that you can generate if you're just doing something with one leg at a time. But it's impossible unless you're a genetic freak of nature. I don't know anyone that can do a one-legged barbell squat. So instead, what they're saying is that the idea is, and this is not to completely remove squats out of the leg training entirely, but just here's something else that you can do instead. And so one of the things that we should be doing is a sled push. And so a sled push, which is where, again, your legs are working independently of each other. So therefore, you can generate more force. Your spine is not under load. So it's much more free. You can concentrate more just on your legs. And a barbell squat and a deadlift, those are really the two exercises that you really want to know what you're doing, because you can do serious injury with that. But whereas a sled push, you've got your arms out in front of you, and so you're going through and you're pushing the weight. So I read this article, and then somewhere deep back in my brain, I remember that sled pushing is one of the things that Josh Brolin used whenever he was getting in superhero shape to be able to play Cable in the Deadpool movie. So going through it, and you load up the sled, you're not really using your arms, you're leaning forward. And so there's a perfect angle that you can get to. And so like if it's hurting you in your back, you're not leaning forward, far enough. And so by going through and doing this, it's a superior way to go through and train your legs, as opposed to putting that weight on your shoulders, which for you would probably be difficult with your balance. But with a sled, then you're able to go through and brace yourself with that. So I was like, well, that's a really cool idea. But the problem is that my gym doesn't have a sled, and I don't have the 20 yards that I need, even if we had one, to be able to go through and push this thing for the right amount of time before you can turn around. But then the article goes through and explains, okay, so if you don't have a sled, here's something that you can do instead. And this is what I have been experimenting with for the past couple of days. So up at my gym, we have treadmills that are done by Precor. And I will say, man, shout out to Precor. They do make some really good equipment, but they're proud of it too, because I looked it up online, and these machines are like $10,000. So
Wow.
pretty difficult for you to have in your home. Yeah, it's a little pricey. But so this machine, it has the capacity to go to an incline level of 15. I don't know if that's 15 degrees, or I'm not entirely certain how that works. But so it can go to a level of 15. So then what I would do, and so typically whenever I do my cardio, I'm usually at a level of like 5. And I mean, it's 5 or 6, that's where it can start to get kind of difficult. So, cranking it up to 15, that's a decent thing. And so, so the article didn't really explain it properly. And so I'm coming along and I'm just like, well, I'm putting it at 15, but I don't feel any different. I mean, I don't feel the leg burn that I was expecting to do. And this is where you have to kind of don't be afraid to look a little dumb, or people going to notice, man, what's this guy doing? But so essentially what you do, so you go through and you crank that level up to 15. Now, granted, this is not a cardio exercise. You're going through, you're going to be, you're treating this like you're moving weight. So instead, the pace is, I started out way too high. And so I cranked it down to like 2 miles an hour. I think at one point I even cranked it back down to 1.7. And so again, when you've got that incline up at 15, but then I'm leaning so far forward that my chest is actually making contact with the apparatus, where like the handles are, things like that. So I'm leaning so far forward and I'm doing such a long stride that I'm practically digging my heel into the treadmill and then pushing it backwards. And so by going through and doing that, so I went through and I'm checking my watch, which monitors my heart rate, all that sort of stuff. And uh, in the AC/DC song, they didn't even get to the guitar solo. And I'm starting to get kind of gassed. So I'm like 3 minutes in and I'm looking at my heart rate and I went from this was the first thing I did in my exercise session. And I went to a fat burning level of heart rate in the span of less than 3 minutes.
Wow.
And so I'm going through and doing this as my warm up. And I've been doing this for the last couple of days now. But yet my legs aren't too tremendously sore. So I can continue to go back. And so now I'm only going to do this for like 5 minutes. But again, it's enough to get me up and moving, get my blood flow going. And now I'm ready to go lift weights. But by going through it and doing this, and so again, for 5 minutes in, even if you're taking a step every 2 seconds, let's call it that. So if you're doing 30 steps in a minute and you're going to do this for 5 minutes, we're talking 150 steps that you just took. I'll even chalk that up and put it in. I'll do 75 per leg. You do 75 reps of anything, you are going to see results. But as a result, I'm not tremendously sore the next day. It's again, I'm leaning so far forward, I don't think anyone's going to confuse it for cardio. And that's the really cool thing, is that if you start to get winded and you feel like, hey, I don't have enough gas anymore, all you do is you stand up. So you go from that leaning forward position to just standing up straight on the treadmill. So that way you're still kind of going, you catch your breath back. Okay, now I'm ready to go again. So now you lean back forward and then you go through and you start digging in with those heels and you're making these big, long stretches. And by going through and doing that, man, you're off to the races. And so I think even if you've got a treadmill at home and you know that this is what you're going to do is, oh, well, my treadmill can't go up that high, you just get clever with a 2x4 in the front of it, safety first. But I think if you go through and you do something like that, you'll start to see a tremendous amount of change. It's a better way to go through and incorporate more leg training in a way that's kind of counterintuitive to what we've normally been taught.
Wow, you piqued my curiosity. It won't be a long time till I get in a position or in fitness level enough to try that, but it's filed in my mind, and I'm definitely going to give it a try at some point in the future.
I think it's doing stuff like that. It's finding new ways to go through and challenge yourself that I think is so. That's part of the stuff that really excites me. And so again, people can go through, they can try it. If they don't like it, then they don't have to. But if they go through and they start building those butt cheeks, man, then you may go through and keep on to it. One of the things that we never got around to talking about last month, just because we just ran out of time. And again, it's going through and doing all these experimentations and find what works for you. And so I started doing these things. I did some a little bit today that I call survivor reps. And so basically Survivor, it's a nod to the TV show that's been going on they're going to do their 50th season.
Wow.
Here, I think, it's the 24 years, or I guess 25 years they've been doing this thing because they do 2 seasons a year. But in Survivor, they always have these challenges where they're going to go through and they're going to hold a bucket that's got 25% of their body weight in it, and so they're going through. They're holding it, and the last person to go through and let that bucket drop, they're going to be the one that's going to win this physical challenge. So I went through and it kind of incorporated almost by accident, where I went through and I shifted down to working with a cable weight, and I was just, well, how long can I just hold this thing here? And so I was going through it and doing these. I know that's not what they're called. I call them yes mommies. I know that's not the name of the exercise, but it's where you're doing a cable crunch, and so you're on your knees and you're bending forward, and it was like, well, how long can I hold this crunch position? And so you go through, so you do that abdominal crunch and you're holding it for a survivor rep, and you will start to shake And I mean, it's because everything in you is just, and you're just fighting to hold on for as long as you can. So by going through and doing exercises like that, it's a great way, maybe not necessarily to do an entire workout that way, but if you're going to do a finisher, hey, this is my closer, I'm going to go through, I'm going to do this, I'll finish it up with a survivor rep and hold that weight for as long as I can.
That's great. I've been for the balance and for the Parkinson's. Sometimes Greek dancing helps, and sometimes shadow boxing. And I'm not really a shadow boxer, and I used to dance Greek dances, but that was very many years ago. I don't have the balance for it anymore, but I can do it for like 5 minutes. So I do 5 minutes, and I do shadow boxing now every day. And then I used to do mace training also. I can't do that because of balance issues either. So I have a plastic baseball bat and I wear wrist weights. And then I instead of hitting something solid, I'll hit like the handles of my chair to keep the aim and the balance straight and consistent. So yeah, I like challenging myself with a lot of different things, and sometimes they don't make sense, and sometimes I give them silly names as well. But as long as it works, that's the important thing. And again, it keeps you interested and motivated, and it keeps your mind open to trying new things. And a lot of people are not willing to give themselves a luxury of trying something new.
It's excellent point. And yes, I do think we need to go through and challenge ourselves on a regular basis. And sometimes you do it smartly, where it's, hey, let's do and let's experiment at this when I have the gym all to myself. So if I completely wipe out and it doesn't work, that's okay. No one's going to be around to see it. But so going back to talking about like what I wanted to do with my New Year's resolution, I wanted to go through and track and I mean really get honed in and say, okay, so if on this day I was doing chest and back, but I did that with free weights, or I'm going to do dumbbells, or I'm going to do barbell, or I'm going to do machine, or I'm going to do cable. And I'm wanting to go through and alternate all of those so that way I'm hitting the muscles in different areas with different machines. So the thing about machine weight that I think a lot of people think that it's easier because you're staying on a steady plane of resistance, so you don't have to control the weight instead of just lifting it up and down. Um, so if you're laying flat and you're doing a barbell bench press, you have to control the weight both up and down, but you also have to keep it in line in a vertical plane. Whereas with machine weights, you don't necessarily have to do that because that vertical plane is stabilized. So all you have to worry about is just pushing it up and down. I hope I've explained that in a way where people understand what I'm talking about. But so I know that you work out at home, but having access to all of those machines is a fairly expensive endeavor. So are you working out with just free weights, or do you have access to machine weights?
Right now, I'm working out with free weights and with exercise toys, I guess you call them. Like I have hand grips of different types. I have different types of foot and hand rollers with different types of bumps on them to hit upon the nerves in a different way. I have like it's called low back tracks, which is this V-shaped device that helps your lower back. I have spring twisters. They used to call them Hercules twisters, where you're basically doing this movement with a piece of metal or two pieces of metal joined by with a spring. So I have a
Oh,
lot,
right. Yeah.
and I have dumbbells and kettlebells that I use primarily, and some theta bells, I call them, and D bells, which are more eccentric type of weights. They only have them in low poundages though, so I have a bunch of those for variety. I have so I do mostly the kettlebells and the dumbbells and use ankle weights and or wrist weights a lot. And then I have the toys that I use for variety. They hit the muscles also on their weightlifting, but they're slightly different in the angle and the type of pressure and the type of angles that you need to hold them in to get a result. But when I lived in
I
Pennsylvania,
mean, and so
I had two universal machines. I had three benches. I had two leg press machines. That's when we lived in Pennsylvania, and we had a huge basement. And in Pennsylvania, like I remember I went to a Salvation Army one time, and they had a bunch of metal parts for $5. So my eyes recognized them as a leg press machine. So I paid $5 for a leg press machine and I assembled it. And a lot of times you'd go to garage sales that people were having, or home sales, and the story was always the same. They buy a piece of expensive exercise equipment like a treadmill. I had a treadmill, uh, and then they wound up using it for a little while, and then they used it to hang up clothes. And so then
right.
they just wanted it out of the house, and you can pick one up for like 25, $30. So when I was in Pennsylvania, I had an entire gym in my basement. I had mirrors all over the place. I had music. It was a phenomenal thing to have had, and I wish I still had it. But now I just use dumbbells, kettlebells, and exercise toys.
So, do you think a universal machine would help you with your balance because it's removing balance out of the equation?
It might. I don't have room to put a universal machine now.
And so the only other option would be to join a gym, and but then you have to go there. It's the expense of it all. Yeah, I completely understand that.
The expense wasn't the thing. There are some nice gyms that are affordable here. It's that my balance and the level of pain that I experience, especially with my back arthritis and the other problems in my back, I'm in pain constantly. And sometimes it freezes up my legs. So the gym's not that far away, but I might not be able to walk to it on a particular day. And if my wife's not available to drive me and drop me off, what happens is I'm walking by myself down the street. I might just all of a sudden be unable to proceed. So that's what's holding that
Sure.
up. But I'm working toward one, and again, I don't give up, even if the odds seem overwhelming. So in my mind, there will come a day where I'm going to the gym and exercising and being able to do a lot more than I'm currently doing, but I'm not there at this particular point in time. So what my goal is to do the best that I can with what I have and how I'm feeling at this particular point in time. And as long as I do my best, nobody can say anything about that. I know I'm doing my best.
Well, so let me dig into this. Let me see. I think we should talk. I think we should talk next month about exercise. Doing what we can with the resources that we have available. I think that'd be a really important conversation that I think a lot of people could learn some stuff from.
Okay, that'd be great. Um,
Yeah. Well, so the only other thing that I wanted to bring to the table tonight, and so again, we're wanting to go through and we're wanting to elevate our gym IQs. And as you have said, sometimes we go through and we start a program, and then we have to go through and we have to tear it all down. And so one of the things, so the treadmill, using that as a sled, I think that's a very valuable tool. Going through and doing the survivor reps, I think I have to get more into the science of why that all works. It is an interesting concept in that. So the reason why we go through the full range of motion, and so it goes, well, why don't we just pick up a dumbbell and why don't we just hold it at 45 degrees and that's our reps? Why do we have to go through the full range of motion? And that's because if we're only holding the weight at a certain level, we'll be really strong, but only at that angle. We're trying to go through and develop the muscles all the way through. So a lot of times, and so, I mean, I have to write this down because I get confused as to which is which. So there is the eccentric phase and there is the concentric phase. And so the concentric phase is where you're going through, and that's where that's the up part, and then the eccentric part is the part where you're lowering it back down. Just kind of as a good general rule, if I'm doing something like a barbell shrug or a dumbbell shrug, or if I'm going through and doing a leg extension, if I can't get to the top of that lift and hold it for 2 seconds, I'm probably lifting a little too heavy because then I'm so focused on just lifting the weight that I'm not really paying attention to my form. And so so that's kind of one of my general rules. And so the eccentric focus, I think, is something that a lot of times we don't pay a lot of attention to. So if you're doing, let's say, a barbell curl, you tend to be very explosive to get the weight up, but then we need to go through and slowly lower the weight. And by going through and doing that, you're challenging your muscles in a different way. So in the article that I was reading about this, so the meta-analysis, which is where they go through and they take a bunch of different studies and they combine all the information together. And so the meta-analysis showed that eccentric focus lifts do not increase muscle mass. So so it does not build more muscle. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't build muscle. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't do them. They're just saying, hey, if you go through and you do these eccentric focuses, your arms aren't going to blow up to twice their size. And so, again, this is where it's about building that gym IQ and understanding, okay, yes, they may not build more muscle, but it does still build muscle. And so if you're looking for something to go through and challenge yourself, but maybe you should throw a day in there where it's like, hey, I'm really going to work on this eccentric focus. So that way I'm slowly lowering the weight and challenging my muscles in a different way. So hopefully there with the sled talk that we did, with the survivor reps and the concentric lifts, even though they don't grow more muscle, but they do still grow muscle. So you should certainly add those in. So hopefully with those three things, we've gone through and educated people tonight on a way to go through and improve their workouts.
I agree, and I'm waiting for you to write a book.
I'm working. It's boy, if I could get all the other stories out of my head first, I'm actually I'm in the process of going through and doing the outline for what could possibly be my next novel, and it's kind of one of those things. Once that gets in there, man, I've got to get this stuff written down so that way I can think about other things. But so I'm really excited about that particular novel right now. But at some point, yeah, I think you're right. It's probably time for me to go through and write all this down so that way I can share those concrete stories and ideas with people.
Yeah, because you're so, and the other ones that you wrote, you'd written with the Phoenix protocols and the Furion fitness, and you know, those were very well written, and they contain a lot of useful information. And what you've been sharing verbally, both on the podcast and here on YouTube, has been fantastic information, and your approach is very life affirming and esteem affirming. So I think the world would be a better place with your book in it.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I think the thing that I want to come across the most with is just to be relatable and to be understandable. So that way people with limited gym knowledge can go through and understand what I'm talking about. And that's where it goes back to the quote from Einstein. That's the true genius, where if you can take something extremely complicated and explain it in such a way that anyone can understand it, that's the true genius. I don't know if I'm at that level, but that's certainly what I'm striving for is so that way the average gym goer or even the beginning novice, because I think so many of these advanced plans that are available online, they're so advanced they've forgotten what it's like to be that person who's just walking into the gym for the first time, or maybe they've done a little bit of weight work but not a whole lot. So there could definitely be a niche there where I think I could add my voice. So it's definitely something that's on the horizon. It's just getting enough time to getting it all written down and then published.
We will definitely promote it when it happens. And
Good.
I want to thank you once again for your generosity and for the clarity of your communications. I think everyone who knows that you're a graphic novelist and an author knows that you're my favorite Greek mythology graphic novelist. Not saying a lot, because there's a lot of Greek mythology in comic books and graphic novels. Yours are by far my favorite. They were the first time I read them, and they remain so still. And I'm very grateful and blessed that we get together for this conversation once a month.
I appreciate it, and I'm glad that you have the capacity to let me come on here and hopefully spread some goodwill out there. Help, I mean, give people something to focus on that's it's good and positive, because I think we all need that, especially when you take a grand look around at everything that's going on right now. Yeah, a little more positivity, and so that's where. Man, is embrace that stoic philosophy and control what you can control. And so if I can't control this stuff on the outside, but hey, I can work on making myself better. And so again, it goes back to this idea, what improves the bee improves the hive. And so if you go through and improve yourself, as we're all parts of society, we go through and improve society by improving ourselves. So, and if you can do that by lifting up heavy weight and setting it back down, it's one of the easiest ways. It's very simple, not easy. It's very simple, but it's not easy. It's a tremendous pathway for self improvement.
Very well said and powerfully said. Thank you very much again. And how can people find you, interact with you, and buy your books?
You have a lot bigger digital footprint than I do, so you have access to a lot more people. So yeah, how you promote the show and stories on Facebook, that's probably the absolute best way. And then the majority of my catalog is all available through a simple search for Ryan Foley at Amazon.com.
Thank you again, my friend. Happy New Year. May this year bring you much joy, optimal health, optimal wealth, opportunities, self-fulfillment, and everything your heart desires.
All that reflected right back to you, my friend.
Thank you. Good night. And good night to all who are at home. Until next time, this is us wishing you joyous journeys and amazing adventure. Take care, everybody.